Hi there, my name is Maya Melnick, and I chose to do my research project on the Kalinagu people of the Caribbean. I will first start off by sharing background information on the people of the Caribbean, following with the territory they reside, to then explain some of their cultural traditions, finally leading into their current fight to preserve the identity of the indigenous people of the Caribbean. An abundance of information I have used to gain knowledge on the Kalinagu people was from a previous study done for the UNE SEO ICH convention. If any of the contributors from that study ever come across this video, I want them to know that I have recognized them for the extensive research done on these people that seem to be diminishing due to the lack of public knowledge and support. It has helped me tremendously understand the most important aspects of the Kalinagu's way of living and was one of the very few documents out there shedding light on these people that deserve to be heard. I will also be incorporating parallels from the Treaty Elders of Saskatchewan textbook that we have been using in my Indigenous class at the U of R fall semester of 2020, specifically referring to pages 18 to 21 and 67 and 68 within the text. On the first slide of this presentation, I have added pictures allowing my audience to gain a visual of what Kalinagu people appear as in their traditional clothing, ranging from past times to current. Here I have also inserted a photo of the correct terms used to describe these articles of clothing in INDG, their traditional language, as well as their English translations. The Kalinagu peoples were the first occupants of Dominica. They occupied the islands as early as 1000 BCE, before its current Afro-Caribbean nationals. Located in the Lesser Antilles and part of the Caribbean archipelago, the Commonwealth of Dominica shared a common European colonial history with the other islands. Thus, with the region interconnected by the migratory movement of the first inhabitants, Dominica quickly became a refuge for the Kalinagu retreating from the surge of French, English, and Dutch colonists as they continued to be pushed from their ancestral lands throughout the 17th century. This caused for land advocacy, and as it persisted, the Carib Reserve Act finally came into operation in the spring of 1978. The terminology reserve is a painful reminder of the horrors of colonial rule, during which time Native peoples were herded like cattle and restricted to small, unproductive areas of their own country, while colonialists enriched themselves by exploring the vast expanses of arable. The image to the right shows the Kalinagu people's right to their ancestral land as decades pass over the centuries. From time immemorial, the Kalinagu were highly skilled craftspeople, making canoes dug from huge trees, which you can see on the image on the right. Also making weaving baskets, and specialized in cassava, bread, and flour making. They had great knowledge of herbal medicine, understood the signs of weather changes in the environment due to their strong relations with nature, spoke their language, and worshipped their ancestor spirit. The Kalinagu territory houses the lives of roughly 2,208 Indigenous people today. Their territory, formerly known as the Carib Reserve, was renamed in 2015. The change resulted in the name Carib to be changed to Kalinagu and Reserve to Territory. The name change was initiated by the Kalinagu to embed pride and dignity in their history and to recapture core elements of their Indigenous heritage. The territory is situated on the northeast of the island between two villages, Atkinson to the north and Castle Bruce to the south, and now totals approximately 3,782.03 acres of land. Here I have added 4 photos showing the beautiful and lively lands that lie on Kalinagu territory. Storytelling is a way of life for many Indigenous people. The Kalinagu peoples are no exception. One of the most evident Carib traditions revolves around numerous tales and legends, one of which explains how the founder of the Carib nation came to be. It goes something like this. One morning, a Carib woman noticed she was visited during the night by an unknown man and became pregnant. Her mother had found someone to keep watch of her daughter during the night so they could catch the unknown assailant. However, the guard saw it too dark to recognize the unidentified man and decided to take the juice of the genep, a small round, fleshy fruit with a green shell, and smear it all over the woman's face. This allowed the guard to detect who the unknown assailant was the following morning from the residue left on his face. In the morning, they found out that the girl's lover was a brother, and the people mocked him so intensely that he withdrew to the sky. There he is seen as the moon, his face all dirty with genep stains. The child who was born of this union was called Hyali, and was believed that he was the founder of the Carib nation. While Hyali was a baby, a hummingbird was chosen to take him to the sky so that his father might see him. As a reward for this service, the hummingbird was given his beautiful feathers and the little cap he wears on top of his head. The Kalinagoos shared a belief that death led to life in another form. From this arose the belief that their living bodies could home the souls of their dead enemies. Therefore, eating the flesh of a brave warrior would supposedly give them strength and courage. Many raids occurred, and enemies that were killed were cut up and eaten on the spot. Another Kalinago belief that was practiced was the torturing of their prisoners. They believed that by performing this act upon the captured would test their strength, further deeming when they could be released. The Kalinagoos worshipped ancestral spirits and sea spirits. They did not have a god they would pray to for guidance, but instead would spend much of their life trying to please the evil god, Maboya. This god was both man and woman. Death for the Kalinagoos meant a journey to either heaven or hell. Only the souls of the brave warriors went to the magical islands where the Tanus were the slaves. However, the cowardly souls went to a dreary desert where they themselves were the slaves of the Tanu master. A parallel I can make to this is much like our Indigenous people of Canada. The European settlers did not understand that there were ever or ever could be any other version of God. All they believed to be true was their own belief of the Christian God. In page 18 of Treaty Elders of Saskatchewan, the words were written, "One of the most enduring stereotypes of First Nations people is the general perception that Indians did not know the existence of God before the coming of Europeans." The same situation was raised when Christopher Columbus discovered the Kalinago territory. It frightened European settlers as they thought the Kalinagoos were savage people with no direction or reform, therefore forcing them into Christianity in pursuit to make them into one of them who share the same beliefs and morals. Here I am showing two pictures. The image on the left was drawn to represent what a Kalinago warrior looked like hundreds of years ago, and the image on the right is a sculpture of their evil god that can still be found within the Kalinago territory today. When the European settlers arrived, a major language barrier existed between the two parties. They tried to convert the Kalinagoos to Christianity. They even built a church on their land, trying to assimilate their culture. Anxiety was also present when the Europeans were around the Kalinagoos. Their warlike traits and religious cannibal practices brought them much fear. These warlike people, however, were civilized. They were an organized society with many advanced tools, boat-making, strategies, and trade. Trade was established prior to Europeans' arrival in the Caribbean in 1492. To the right, I have added an image created by Times newspaper to create a visual of the Europeans' first contact on Kalinago territory. The centuries-old assimilation projects of Canada aimed at civilizing the Indian were predicated on the belief that a sense of shame about being Indian, should be included in the minds, souls, and hearts of First Nations children. This was a piece of text from page 21 in Treaty Elders of Saskatchewan. This quote refers to the residential schools of Canada, where European governments created a plan to strip the Indian from the child. The connection I have made to the Kalinago people of Dominica is that just like Canada, European settlers had the same intent of taking away the Kalinago culture from its people. They wanted the Kalinagoos to become one of them. In their eyes, no other way of life was civil or correct but their own. After many years of fighting, within the boundaries of the territory, the Kalinagoo rights and heritage are protected by law and practiced under the governance of the Kalinagoo Council. Currently, there is a Ministry of Kalinagoo Affairs as part of the national political system of governance, which allows the Kalinagoo first-handed influence in decision-making about themselves, their land, and their resources. The Kalinagoo language has almost become abolished, therefore, only a handful of surviving words and phrases are left for the people to view. Throughout the Kalinagoo history, they have suffered genocide, cultural discrimination, and challenges of alcohol abuse due to high poverty levels, low skill levels, and unequal opportunities. These factors play a significant part in their culture diminishing today. Decades after the Kalinagoo people fought with the repercussions of cultural genocide, the Kalinagoo people today partake in an effortless lifestyle rooted in their economic material condition and hold a unique place in the country's heritage and culture. As such, the government in recent years has made a concerted effort to focus on their advancement as a people and instilling pride in their rich heritage as the last remaining established settlement within the region. In page 68 and 67 of Treaty Elders of Saskatchewan, it talks about the fight First Nations people, particularly the elders, are fighting for today. This includes their perspective and understanding of the treaties made, their relationship to the land, and their right to earn a living from the land, also stressing the stigmatized racism their people face today. The connection I can make to this is that Indigenous groups across the globe are still fighting for their rights today. Not to mention, the only reason this is happening is due to the colonization of European settlers many decades ago. The fight for Indigenous rights is never ending as I see it, and there is no reason why it should sit on the back burners of many governments around the world today. Here are my sources used within my proposal and my presentation. The last couple of things I wish to share during this presentation consist of my purpose of study, new knowledge, and my final words. My purpose of study revolved around the main point of wanting my work to contribute to the recognition of the Indigenous peoples of the Dominican and surrounding Caribbean islands. I wanted to create another platform used to voice the importance of their culture and its value to preserve our First Peoples' heritage. With limitations to flawed analysis, loss of language, and extinction of many oral traditions, it has led me and many others to dead ends within this path. I hope my viewers use this video to understand and gain insight on the Indigenous peoples of the Caribbean, because they deserve to be known and respected for the hardships they have faced and continue to during present day. New knowledge that I have learned consists of the recognition and connection making with the Kalinagoo people and our Indigenous people of Canada. They share many similarities, like forced upon Christianity, a different spiritual belief rather than the Christian God, and their own way of living that completely supported their way of life. The Kalinagoo people are under-recognized and deserve much more reconciliation for the European settlers' wrongdoings at the time of contact, and worse, what they put the Indigenous people through afterwards. They, amongst many other Indigenous groups across the globe, deserve this, and almost every government is lacking in doing so. We as citizens of Canada should not only fight for the right of our Indigenous people, but for others across the globe. We are privileged, and therefore we need to use that for the greater good. In conclusion, my presentation has identified the background of the Kalinagoo people of the Caribbean, where they have resided, which included that they were the first to discover Dominica and later on pushed out of their territory by colonists. The Kalinagoo traditional values and beliefs, as well as their constant battle to protect and educate the culture of the Kalinagoo Indigenous people. I want this presentation to share my knowledge on the Kalinago people and continue to educate not only my peers, but myself on the Indigenous population and the continuing struggle they face under today's society in hopes to make a change. Thank you for watching.